Hello, everyone, and welcome to African Conservation Podcast. Today with us is Georgina Goodwin, a photographer based and born in Nairobi, Kenya, who's doing a lot of work, linking photography and indigenous conservation. Sorry. So many projects she's going to talk to us about today. Welcome, Georgina.
Thank you, Matthew. Nice to see you guys, and thank you for having me on board this conversation. I'm actually currently in the Masai Mara, just starting a new project, but I am waiting to hear on another project as well. As Matthew said, I've got a lot going on. But my name is Georgina Goodwin. I'm born and based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I spend a lot of time in the Masai Mara. As I said, I've got a couple of projects going on. But I have been working as a photographer for 20 years. I'm a former Canon ambassador and a Canon certified trainer, taking trainings with photographers and storytellers all across Africa with Canon. But I also have my media agency that I started about 8 years ago, which is GG Images Media. And we are creating a new soft launch, just connecting more and more to African storytellers and photographers across the continent, amplifying voices and creating a space where people can share what they want to say from their own perspectives across the continent.
Nice. So
Mhm.
would you say that when you're connecting this photographer from across the continent, is it, like how do you approach them? Are you saying, I've got this to show you, how are you doing on your end? Or is
Mhm.
it like a wider approach and you approach many, many people and some of them reply?
I'm going to do a soft call first to people who I know have, and we've been working with them for the last 8 years under GG Images. So they will be initiated in the first round. And part of the initiation and the recruitment procedure is to make sure that the photographers who come on board as what we call network photographers within GG Images pass some courses that I'm going to be creating so that we're all on the same standard. We also know all the same way how to metadata and create file names. Everybody's on the same page. Then I'm not worrying or panicking as everybody's out on a job that that my name's on the line.
Of course.
Um, so it's been a bit hit and miss up until now, but we have got some amazing people that I've worked with across the continent. And for some projects, like for the Royal Engineering Society, GG Images was hired to do the photography. And for the first year, about 8 years ago, we were working with 16 photographers in 9 different countries. So the connections has been fantastic. The idea now is to solidify this. And once I have all of those people on board, then I'm going to make a call to the continent. Anybody who is a photographer and interested in being and working with GG Images as a network photographer, there's also a space to be an emerging photographer to submit a portfolio. And I will do some reviews. I'll get some people on board to help me with the reviews. So everybody gets a little bit of something from GG Images, feedback on their work. So the idea is to amplify and support African storytellers and photographers across the continent. Those people who are of the standard and style that GG Images would like to work with, at being an international standard agency, then we will reach out to them and we can onboard them, pass them through the courses, and then start working with them and connecting with clients and supporting visual storytelling in that way.
That's amazing. So you're saying most of it is when you say storytelling, is the conservation like linked to, let's say, wildlife science, or it's more to indigenous populations surrounding the parks or the reserves, or is it a bit of both, maybe?
Well, GG Images Media itself is going to be about documentary photography and any kind of storytelling to do with the African continent and how clients and NGOs and partners and collaborations want to work. So it can be telling stories about projects or even an event, covering an event, because I know that that's a lot of space that needs to get covered for clients. So it's very much about linking opportunities for African storytellers and photographers to client opportunities. But within that, GG Images is also going to be rolling out a conservation arm, which is African conservation photographers. This hasn't been announced yet, but the first cohort is going to be by invitation. I've already identified the 5 or 6 photographers from across the continent that we would like to invite to be on board and roll this out. And once they've come on board. I'm not quite sure the second rollout, but the idea is to have a joint project where everybody works on it from their perspective, and then we have a space where that one project is then given space on global platforms to help raise the visibility of this program and connect people back, especially African photographers, to this space where conservation exists. We're really lacking on African conservation photographers, and this is what GG Images wants to do, support that conversation.
Yeah, it must not be easy, like for an African photographer to get into the business, like to get the hardware, the opportunities. Are you also going to help with that? Or depending, of course, once you choose someone,
Yeah.
they're going to have the help to find clients, but also to get training,
Mhm.
to do great photography. And I guess, I'm sure that to do a great photography, you need at least some equipment, huh?
Yeah, that's it. I think we're not going to try and focus on photography equipment as such, but the idea as a storyteller, what do you need? What impactful stories can you tell in your own communities, in your own backyards, and how can those be given a space where the authenticity of it, because it's your own unique story, given a space where that can be linked up on a global platform and shared in a supported and protected way, in a place that is partnered with other organizations that have the same ethos, supporting underrepresented voices and across Africa, especially in the conservation space.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, it must be a lot of work, huh? But it's an amazing project.
It's going to
Really
be less
amazing.
taken me 2 years to get this far. But yeah, I mean, just to clarify as well, I think I wasn't as clear as I'd like to
Yeah.
be. Yes, there will be space for storytelling. Photographers will be invited to go and tell certain themed stories and projects where they can connect to their own backyard and places and issues that they are aware of in their own world, in their own life. But alongside that, there will be mentorship opportunities. There'll be partnering, and this is all under the main umbrella of GG Images, which essentially is trying to connect African voices and African storytellers to clients so that there can be paid opportunities.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because even if you have a beautiful story from your village,
Yeah.
maybe the village is having trouble with elephants and the guys they want to relay that message.
Hmm.
Not always very easy for them, I guess, to find the right platform or the right
How do you
people
even
to
start?
talk to.
That's it.
And getting money from it is a complete other issue. It's amazing, but at
Especially
least
these
spread
days.
the word, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a first step. It's the first of its kind. There's nothing like this being done in the whole world, on supporting African conservation photographers and African conservation voices, in terms of um, that visual storytelling aspect. Yes, there are videography spaces. There's AfriSource, there's Jackson Wild Organization. There's a lot of places that do actually connect to the African storytelling aspect. But in terms of a home specifically for photographers who are dedicating their entire career to giving back to the planet and highlighting African conservation stories, there isn't anybody like that. So I do want to make sure that GG Images provides that space through African conservation photographers. But the whole bigger concept with GG Images, it's really time. I've been working in this industry for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. I've trained a lot of people through Canon, Ugandan photographers, Tanzanian photographers, Nigerian photographers, Kenyan photographers. And I really want to find a platform where myself and what I create, even after I die, can continue on and instill confidence and create exactly what you're saying, a place that people can go to because they know it's linked up to the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a bit like, this project I have with the podcast is a bit the same, but it's a bit wider because me, I'm not so specific as you are.
Mm.
I'm not a crazy photographer, but the idea is the same. We want to link up the people and make sure their voice is heard, make
Mhm.
sure the project at the other end of Africa gets as much coverage as the one from Masai Mara. Let's
Yeah.
say there's someone in the Congo or in Chad, they have an amazing story, they have a few pictures, maybe they'll find the help they need, and it will
Mhm.
help the general public and at the same time clients for them to
Yeah.
know what's going on. And it's so important, huh, what you're doing.
This is where we're at with the world. I've seen it more and more, especially over the last 10 years, needing to create bridges and become the bridge ourselves from what's happening to from issues to solutions,
Yeah.
bridging that gap. And I think this is where GG Images and ACP, African Conservation Photographers, is going to really help. And as you said, the more people are aware of these opportunities, the more this kind of conversation and ethos and connecting back to nature and helping us understand what's needed to protect what we have left, that's going to become more and more normal and hopefully become something that is instilled in everybody. And it won't be just how do I connect to nature today because nobody, somebody doesn't have even a plant in their house. It becomes absolutely normal and necessary to have green, to connect to nature on a daily basis.
Yeah. And if you were like on your end, when you're on the ground, which is often, what would you say is the biggest challenge or threat or, anything that jeopardizes the environment? What would it be?
In terms of how I carry the storytelling out,
Yeah, maybe, or like concretely, like on the ground. Is it human
yeah.
wildlife conflict? Is it over tourism? Is it something else? Could you say, or it's too difficult, too different?
Well, I think the biggest, as Jane Goodall eloquently put recently, our biggest threat is apathy, just not knowing how to care, what can we do, and thinking that our impact or our ability as one small person is not good enough or can't impact enough. If all, I mean, how many people are we in the world now? Over 8 billion. If we all said that, then we're doomed. The people like us who are having these conversations and just you have to stay positive. And going to another conservation icon, David Attenborough, you have to have hope. You have to keep that alive. And I posted even yesterday on coming into the Masai Mara on plains that used to be filled with wildebeest and zebra and giraffe and Tommy. They're empty. There's nothing. And I just did a story last year for Clemson University where I was talking with a young Maasai elder who was an alumni of Clemson University, and he's now dedicated his life for 12 years working in the Masai Mara Conservancies Association to trying to connect people back to the land and help them understand what it is that's missing and how we've lost. He said 60% of the wildlife in the Masai Mara is lost, and we know we've lost 90% of the vultures through poisonings and habitat loss. So, knowing these numbers on a daily basis is absolutely heartbreaking. The only way I can survive is to actually create a positive space where I literally have to lift myself up and I lift the planet up through what I share to help us stay in that place where we know we can make a difference. So that's what I feel. To come back to your question, apathy is very, very important to not lose sight of, what we can do as individuals, the choices we make on a daily basis. And one of the big things is make sure you connect to nature. You don't know how important it is until you don't connect to it for such a long time. Mental illness, depression, all these things come about through lack of connecting to anything to do with green and
Yes.
nature. And, even now in Japan, they are prescribing forest bathing
Yeah, I've
as
seen.
part of mental illness cure. We're
Yeah.
coming back to these all around the planet. But if I'm trying to be positive, I'm also ultimately underneath that, I'm very scared. We're not doing this fast enough, and it worries me so much. And this is
Yeah.
where what you're
It's the
doing and
same.
what we touched about being the bridge
Mm.
is really, really important. If we can all become this bridge connecting us back to nature and what matters, then I think we can make a difference.
Exactly. Like it's the same here in France, and there's many more and more doctors that just saying if you feel dark and gloomy, go outside and go have a walk in the forest.
So
You don't
pleased to
need a
hear that.
field or somewhere, just go outside. The nature
Oh,
does so much to us. Like when you see a safari client, for example, goes in Kenya or Tanzania for the first time ever, they have expectations, but they come back and they're like, Mathieu,
mhm.
I understand why you're addicted to Africa, to
Yeah,
nature. It's something you
that's it.
cannot describe easily, but it gets into your heart,
Your
and then
blood.
if you and
Mm,
I, and there's so many others out there, can spread the
mhm.
word that these places, they need protection, be it the communities around it, they do a lot. The governments, the NGOs, even the
Mm.
tourists, they can act. They're small, each of us, if we do one little thing, we need,
Yeah.
like you said, we need to stay hopeful. If we don't have hope,
Yeah.
there's nothing left. But we need to have hope.
One very important thing I think to add here as well is there's our the governments, excuse me, governments, leaders, but also one of the big, guides of ethics in the Mara are the guides. And if you, as the consumer of the product being the Masai Mara and wildlife and, safari conservation or safari experience, as the consumer, if you pick your guide ethically, somebody who carries himself and adheres to the park rules and goes deeper than just waiting for his next tip and protects and looks after the wildlife, if you can make sure that that's a priority, and if everybody in the Mara did that, we would not have had the incident that we had recently where we lost Nora, the eldest cheetah
Yeah.
in the Mara, who died because of negligence. The guides didn't turn their vehicles engines off. She couldn't hear the threat, which was looming, and the leopard Bella learnt how to hunt using the vehicles as cover. So we're adding to issues, and we've just lost. I mean, there's 11 or 10 cheetah left in the Mara as it is, and we've just lost the most powerful, beautiful cheetah who's been around, and she learnt everything. But because of human intervention and lack of ethical guiding, she lost her life. That's definitely my opinion. I'm sure other people will have other ways of interpreting that experience. But unfortunately, from a conservation point of view, I'm quite upset about that. But
Yeah, I agree with you.
safari companies. And then unfortunately, we have to come to the leaders of our countries. I don't know if don't know how much difference we can make other than to vote for people who actually care for the environment.
Yeah, exactly. No, no. The safari guides, like you say, they are a crucial step, in conservation because they are the one driving around the parks, sometimes, like you said, stressing the animals too much
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
going off-road what they're not supposed to, getting very close. Some people now, many people use their phones only. So of course, if you want a
yeah.
lion on your phone,
That's
you
one
have
of
to
the
get
very
much
big
closer,
points.
which is back in
Absolutely.
the day, everyone had huge lenses and you can
Hmm.
take a very nice picture from far away. But now
Yeah.
guides, they are tricked, like you said, by the tip issue. And they're like, okay, if I want a good tip, I'll do whatever they ask me. Yes,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
maybe this is not the great, is
Yeah.
not the best option. Like in the end, you will damage the environment, and even
Mhm.
your client might see it. Like these guys, when they had the incident with the cheetah, I'm sure they
Hmm.
regretted it, but it was too late. And those, like you said, there's not too
It's
many.
a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't gone that far. I can't actually watch anything. I'm too heartbroken about it. But to add to what you're saying, social media has a lot to play. Our consuming social media content responsibly, not supporting stupid AI content where fake things happen, like lions attacking a cheetah, and in the middle of on the front of a vehicle, things that just would not happen. And we're teaching people through the AI designs what wildlife might do, but it looks real, but it's not, and those kind of behaviors just wouldn't happen. So people who aren't connected to nature on a normal basis, living in cities, they don't know what would be real, and so they
Yeah.
consume this content, and it creates a very misled, misunderstood space with wildlife. And that's a whole nother conversation, which we probably shouldn't go down right now. But the conversation that we're having now is ethical behavior and ethical
Yeah.
consuming of our wildlife and our natural spaces.
Yeah, because without these big spaces, like, when I think about my grandkids, for example, I'm not so sure they'll see a wild rhino, not so sure. I hope so. I want to be hopeful. And there's some places when there's many, you go to Solio, you go to Old Pegeta,
Mhm.
but the protection there, you have to go yourself to understand. Like it's fences, it's
24
armed
hours.
guards with dogs, they're
Yeah.
patrolling
Mm.
24/7. And if when you see, like when we saw, was last year, we saw a rhino in Serengeti, which is not fenced and it's
Hmm.
not with a guard 24/7. And the
Yeah.
clients, they were like, "Oh, it's a rhino." I'm like, "It's not just any
Don't
rhino.
understand.
You cannot." It's like seeing a wild cat. When you see a wild cat,
Yeah.
people be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's a cat." I'm like, "No, it's a wild cat. The closest village is 400
Really,
kilometers.
really special.
It's really special." So if we
Mhm.
want to leave Africa to be so special and so,
Mm,
it gets under your skin. And there's a lot of
yeah.
work to be done,
Hmm.
be it in photography, be it in science, research.
Yeah.
Even the tourism side has to adapt. I think all of us, it's a group effort.
This is something I know you wanted to touch on with this podcast is connecting conservation to people.
Yeah.
And without people, you cannot have conservation. It's through people. People are storytelling is the way people connect to the fundamentals, the context in which our world exists. And by consumers of the stories, when we choose to creators and consumers of stories, we decide what the world sees. So coming back to the ethics of conservation storytelling and conservation photography, it's no longer just good enough, quite frankly, in my book. It's not good enough just to take a beautiful leopard picture and say, oh, this is a leopard, and look at my beautiful leopard in the Masai Mara. What's the leopard's name? What's the history? Why is she there? Why is she sitting on that branch? What led her to there? Who's helping to support her? Why is she still alive? What are her daily threats? um, Connect us to the background, to the story of everything that happened to get you into that place of the luxury, the honor of
Yes.
photographing a beautiful wild cat in the
Yeah, for sure.
wild, still in a wild environment. Yes, 70 vehicles can be surrounding one leopard sometimes, maybe even more, but essentially we do still have this wild experience. And it's really important as conservation and photographers to make sure we do the backstory and connect people to the people aspect of wildlife and the people aspect of conservation, because you cannot have conservation without people. It's the people who decide how that conversation goes. Not just the storytellers and creators like myself, but indigenous populations who live and own the land and interact with wildlife on a daily basis.
Yeah, because we talked about guides, but like you said, the communities who surround the parks or live
Mhm.
on the conservancies, their day-to-day life since they were babies is to live with the wildlife. Like if you're herding goats for 5 years in the bush, you know where to find the lions, you know where to find the elephants, you know how to kind of, not defend yourself, but like warn others of what's going on. There's so many interesting NGOs who are doing amazing work, and they have scouts in the bush and they can warn the herders to bring back the cows or the goats because maybe a lion is coming. Same
Yeah.
at night with the elephants in the crops. Like it's communities, the in French we say le nerf de la guerre. Like they are what's at the core of conservation. If you don't have
Mhm.
communities with you in your team,
Yeah.
helping and explaining how they do things, how they view things,
Mhm.
it doesn't work.
Yeah, and actually having that community person in that team is the trust link, because where you're trying to create the conservation and the protection, it has to come from within. Otherwise, it doesn't last. There's so many projects, and I know it was the 1980s model, NGO model, that come from the outside and impose some kind of project on an indigenous space. Or a local, community. And very rarely did those conversations actually stay because they came in with outside language, outside concepts, and it wasn't onboarded within the community as something they needed, that something mattered to them. So if you can frame it in a way where the community, it's important for the community and it works for them, of course, it's going to be self perpetuating. They will support from within. And that's one of the projects actually that I'm working on at the moment. I applied for a National Geographic Explorers grant to look at how to I've called it reframing conservation through Maasai indigenous perspectives. But essentially what it is stripping back to the traditional way of life that the Maasai was very connected to the land, and without modern pressures, how did they survive? How did they work? And what we come to is livestock land, and ultimately legacy. So working with wildlife means allowing the livestock to flourish. And as the livestock flourishes, the wildlife are allowed onto the land, keeping the land in big blocks. And when you come at conservation, that's an outside concept. When you come at conservation in the Masai Mara from the perspectives of land, livestock and legacy, that is the model that is going to self-perpetuate and move this Masai Mara land forward.
Yes, it is. Slowly, slowly. Pole pole, it will come. Well, thank you, Georgina. It was amazing. Like all these projects in the coming month or years, I'm not going to disclose any secrets, but there's so many things that are going to happen. And yeah, like to sum up, like conservation photography now is more than an image. It's a whole story. It's more like to me was outside this business, but it's more like journalism to me. It's like a story with an image, right?
Yeah, people and planet.
Yeah. So to have people like you and who are trying to connect people, help raise their voices to be heard better, and at the same time train them how to do this. Like I've
Mhm.
got an idea. Okay, come, I'll show you how to maybe display it better so it's understood.
Yeah.
I'll help you find some clients and can get some money and keep doing what you're doing.
Hmm.
It's no, it's been really very interesting. Very,
Yeah. You said about the goat herder boy,
yeah.
who's for 5 years has been taking his goats and he knows the land like the back of his hand and he knows where the snakes are, where the lions are. That is a wonderful analogy for indigenous-led perspectives because instead of just coming and saying just because he's a boy or because he's Maasai, he doesn't actually know how to look after the wildlife. Indirectly, his living and learned experience is what's going to keep the wildlife allowed, his choices because he can connect and he can keep the land in forest, he can choose to make the space available for wildlife to live alongside his cattle and his cows and his sheep. It's those people giving them the space where they are allowed to have their perspectives valued because it's indigenous, because it's known from generations of understanding and living with the land, and working with that to see how you can tie it into a brighter future for coexistence with
Yes.
wildlife conservation and with the global conversation as well.
Yeah, because the population will keep growing, and we need to
Space
let
is shrinking.
the wildlife needs to have its space. So we need to
Hmm.
find a way so they can cohabit better with less, I was about to say violence, but with less incidents, we'll say.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because like you said, they are the best at keeping it the way it was. It's been like this for like thousands of years. And of
Mm.
course, the tourism aspect of it, the greed also of some, I'm not going to mention them, but some of them are very greedy and they're ready to
Hmm.
build anywhere to make money.
Yep. Yep.
So we need not you and I only, but like the whole community and the whole public needs to be
Yeah.
aware of these things so they can act
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
choose wisely when they choose to buy a photography, when they choose to buy a safari somewhere. There's a way to do this, and you don't pick the cheapest one, you pick the wisey one, like the sorry,
Mm.
the smart one, there's a
Yeah,
way
the
to do
one
it.
that carries himself with ethics.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's up to us. We every one of us has a role in protecting what we have left through the choices that we make and the voices that we choose to actually support.
Very, very interesting. We could stay an hour, but that was very nice.
Thank
So yeah, I
you,
wish
dear.
you a very good day in the Masai Mara with your family.
Thank
And
you.
it was an honor to have you on the podcast today, Georgina.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for allowing me the space to share my perspectives and the platforms that I'll be rolling out for African conservation photographers and African media talent across the continent. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgina. Bye.
Okay, bye.